Now, from the United States of America.
Hi, you have reached the Decahedron RPG Cast feedback line. Just start talking at the sign of the tone.
Hey guys, Jason here. Just listened to episode 66, Sandbox Adventures. Great episode, great discussion. Yeah, James mentioned how it's not a traditional D&D style play, and I know that, Joe, you gave him a little bit of pushback there. It's interesting because the earliest D&D, proto D&D, when we look at Dave Arneson's Blackmore, was very much a sandbox, right? But later on, once people figured out they could make money selling modules, we quickly became more of a, the GM is a quest giver. Although when you got settings like the world of Greyhawk and things like that, we open back up to throwing people possible sandbox. So I agree with Joe here. It is a type of play, but it was around at the very beginning of the industry. So it's not a new thing that came out with indie games. It was definitely there at the very beginning. You mentioned Elite. I remember playing Elite on my Commodore 64. I was never really great at it. But I do remember that game. I kind of wish I could get a simulator of that game. I know there's a newer version of it out there, but I'd kind of like to get that original game with, just the outlines of the ships and the shapes. And yeah, that was a neat game. So I appreciate that memory being brought back. But yep, great episode. Looking forward to the next one.
Hey everyone, that is Jason from the Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Great podcast. Links are in the show notes. Check it out. Hey Jason, thanks for that feedback. I, of course, like I said in the original episode, I'm going to completely agree that sandboxes are a traditional style of play. Maybe they're not very much a common style of play these days. But even then, I think I would push back on that. I think that they're definitely a traditional style of play. The Judges Guild Wilderlands series, like any of them, take your pick, that is very sandboxy. It is a published adventure with just a big hex map and some locations of interest. No quests, no anything. In fact, no real adventures for the GM either. But I actually like stuff like that. I like to fill in a lot of the blanks myself. Like I said when we were talking about my favorite module, I said 76 patrons for Traveler by GDW. And James said, no, that didn't count because, that's just Adventure Seeds. And then I said, for D&D, my all-time favorite is The Frontier Forts of Kelnor by Judges Guild. And in that one, it's sort of an adventure creation kit because you have the map of the fort and everything, but there's a whole bunch of tables where you roll to see what is special about this specific fort that you're at and all that stuff. Yeah, I like that. As for modules supplanting sandboxes, I think even the original intent of modules were to place in your sandbox. I mean, if you think about your traditional one-off adventure module, what do you do with it? You don't use it to base a campaign on. You stick it somewhere, and that is an adventure that the players come across. Now, over time, TSR decided that, if we say that the sinister secret of Saltmarsh is located in the specific hex of Greyhawk, then people will go out and buy World of Greyhawk when they buy this module, so they will know where it's supposed to be. Yeah, I hate stuff like that. And then, of course, like Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh becomes a 3-part adventure, right? There's 3 modules there. And of course, Village of Hamlet to Elemental Evil to Against the Giants to the Drow adventure, Queen of the Demon Web. Oh, Against the Drow, then Queen of the Demon Web Pits. That is the module turned into a campaign. This is the whole series of adventures. And that's definitely not my thing. But yeah, I agree with you that sandboxes is traditional. And I think that modules even have their place in sandboxes. And then we're going off topic here, but hey, it's my podcast. I'm allowed to. First of all, you said Commodore 64, which, amen, brother. Although, yeah, well, I had a Commodore 64, but only briefly. And then I had an SX64 because I was living in the dorms at the base during tech school, but that arrived damaged and stuff. And then I got stationed in the UK, like I said before. And while I was there, I bought a Commodore 128. So that was my computer for most of the 80s. And then when I got back late 80s, I switched over to Amiga. So yeah, Commodore lover here. As for Elite, so if you are an Elite lover and you want to play Elite, yes, they do have the new one, but there is an open source one out there called OOLite, OOLITE, as an object-oriented LEET, OOLite, OOLite, which is pretty much a very faithful reproduction of the original, but modernized that will run on modern computers. So if I remember, I will stick a link for that in the show notes. Also, though, if you want the just traditional experience, by all means, sir, grab yourself a copy of Vice. Vice is the versatile something Commodore emulator. It's an emulation package. It emulates a 64, it emulates a 128, it emulates a VIC-20, it emulates the PET computers, the Plus 4, the Commodore 16, all of those it can emulate, and you can run the games. Of course, now this point you're talking about, you're going to have to grab yourself a pirated copy somewhere of the disk files and stuff. So that's up to you and your own morality. But I love emulators. In addition to that, there is a company called Retro Games, and they actually make two pieces of hardware. One is called the C64 Mini. It's just like it looks like a little C64, but it's only like this little, 3x5 size module that you plug in your computer. That you plug into your TV, and you plug in a joystick. And if you want, though, you can plug in an SD card and, run Commodore stuff that way. But what's even better is they have the C64 Max. And I have one of those. And it's a full size, the old breadboard style Commodore 64, as we called them. Bread box. Yeah, it's that size with the original Commodore keyboard and everything. And you can plug in the joysticks and plug it in your TV and play. It's wonderful. I like to actually write Commodore 64 programs and the old C64 Basic because I'm a nerd. But yeah, I have one of those. And there's also, if you prefer like the updated Amiga versions, there is a program out there called UAE, which is the ubiquitous, I can't remember what the U stands for, Amiga emulator. It used to stand for Unix, but then they made it work on Windows and Macs and stuff, although Macs run Unix. So, yeah. And that same company, Retro Games, makes this like the little C64 one I was talking about. They have an Amiga 500 version of that. I actually bought one of those for Heather and Keith for Christmas last year, and it was a big hit. Heather's favorite game is Lemmings, which originally came out on the Amiga, and so I got her that so she could enjoy her favorite game. Hey, anyway, enough of the off-topic stuff. Thanks for the call, sir.
Joe and James, it's Evil Jeff. Hey, just got through with your latest podcast on Sandboxes. Great stuff. Got me thinking. Might even have me thinking hard enough that get out of this consumption mode and bring the podcast back up and running. Yeah, lots of good stuff in there. Probably going to listen to it again to digest a little bit more of it. But yeah, a lot of good thought-provoking content there. All right, you guys be good. We'll see you later.
That was Evil Jeff from the Minions and Musings podcast. Again, links are in the show notes. Hey, Evil Jeff, thanks for that message. Thanks for liking the show. I don't know how to do this without sounding like full of myself. But, when I was doing the edit for the show, and then I always listen to them when they come out, make sure I didn't miss anything or whatever. When I was listening to that show, I was like, this is what I envisioned the show being like. I thought that was one of our better episodes. So yeah, I'm glad that someone else enjoyed it too. And as for getting you out of consumption mode, I would love that, sir. I miss your podcast. You have a great and awesome podcast. I like it. In fact, I was thinking about it just Saturday. I dropped my gym membership over the summer. I went out for a run. And that's when I used to listen to you when you're actively podcasting, was while I was out running. And like I would remember this one bend is when you were talking about going through the binders and finding your old stuff. So yeah, I would love it, love it if you were to bring back Minions and Musings. Thanks for the call.
Hey, Jason here. Just got back home. Well, I'm driving home from the airport after traveling for work for a week, and wanted to let you know I'm in the process of listening to your latest episode, and I would participate in a BBS, but I think a web forum, a more modern web forum, would get more participation. At least with the web forum, people don't have to download. They don't have to, they can just go there, sign in, and post. And I think that would get more participation. I would do either, but I think the average person these days doesn't remember bulletin board, and they'd probably be more likely to do the standard forum. But I would definitely support you either way in that. And I will send you a separate message with the contest entry. And I'll finish listening to the episode and maybe even talk about that.
Hey, Jason. Thanks for that call. Thanks for your thoughts about the BBS versus web forum. Yeah, I do agree that a web forum would be more likely to bring in people, just that lower bar of entry, right? Everyone knows how to use a web browser. Not everybody knows how to fire up a forum. Fire up a terminal emulator and connect to a TCP IP address. Actually, I would probably get a domain name for it. So, yeah, I see your argument. I think there's arguments to be said in the other way, but I have made a decision. But we're going to listen to this next message first. But thanks for that, Jason.
Steel Jeff. Just started listening to your latest Feedback Friday and had to stop in the middle of it because you asked a question about, would you set up a bulletin board and so forth like that? And the answer is absolutely. Why do you even listen to that man question you? But yeah, I ran a bulletin board with a friend on a Commodore 64 for years, so yeah, I'm used to that and love it. And I still do go out to a couple bulletin boards that are reachable via TCP/IP, and one of them through I think it's Telnet. I can get to it that way. But yeah, if you put it up, I'll be there. Not a problem. Later.
Evil Jeff, thanks for that call. Thanks for that encouragement. Yeah, as you just heard, Jason made a compelling argument for a web forum over BBS. You remember what it was like, though. You remember those BBS days. Oh, and the local boards in Wichita Falls, which is where I lived during my BBS days, they all had doors. Food Fight was a big one. There was some Mafia one. I don't remember what that one was. Legend of the Red Dragon, LORD. That was a big one all over the place. But my favorite one was one called Galactic Empires. And it was just this big multiplayer game. And it had a map. And I remember it would be different every game. And I would print it out and I would laminate it. And I would use wet erase to keep track of my borders and my strategy, where I was going to attack next and all that stuff. And it was great. And there were great fellow players. And that is the biggest argument in favor of the BBS. But, what I've decided to do is go with the web forum and the BBS. My only fear with doing that is that they'll each get half traction and neither one will really take off. But I think if I just do the forum, just do the BBS, mainly for the doors, there'll be some conversation there, of course, but just for the doors, and keep most of the conversation on the forum, that might be the way to go. So I spent this last weekend working on both sets of technology, and I'll talk about the BBS first, and then I'll talk about the web boards. So for the BBS, I wanted to run a program called WWIV. That's the one I ran most recently. Last century. But when I had my PC, after I moved from the Amiga to the PC, that's the one I ran. It was WWIV. That was the software that everybody ran in Wichita Falls, and it was very slick. It was shareware, but I paid for mine. When you paid for it, you got the source code, so you could do mods on it, and that was great. And it had good door support. But the issues I'm running into. So I was going to run it on this old Raspberry Pi 400 that I have. Great little, cheap little computer. I love the heck out of it. But the Raspberry Pi is an ARM processor. And if you want to run anything DOSy on it, it's not going to work, right? Because they're all expecting like an old 86 type computer, 386 or 486, whatever. I mean, WWIV does have a Linux version, and they claim to have a Raspberry Pi version. And I tried both, and just some hiccups. I'm trying to build it, and it's not recognizing my Ninja Make. So I could keep working on that, or I could dig up I have a couple unused Windows laptops hanging around, and I'm like, maybe that's the way to go, because then the doors will work. And that's what I want to do for the BBS is the doors. And they're old enough that I think at least one of them is running Win32, because the doors are all 16-bit programs, and 64-bit Windows won't run 16-bit DOS apps. So those are the struggles I'm facing there. I'm still working it. As for the web forums, I am not facing any struggles at all. The biggest struggle is picking what software package I wanted to run. I did an install over the weekend, and Saturday night, I sent a few select people emails to test it out for me, and they gave it a try, and everything looks like it's working good. So I think I'm going to go live. There's some appearance things I would like to change, and like I haven't sure how I'm going to do subboards yet, but I figure get people there, get people talking, and then when we see what people are talking about, it will be more obvious what sort of subgroups to set up. And the other thing I want to do is any RPG podcaster that wants their own subboard and they want to be their moderator of their little subboard on it, no problem. I'll let them do it on this one. Just let me know. Reach out to me, send me an email, send me a PM on the boards, whatever, and say, hey, yeah, I would like if you wanted to do it, I would like a Minions and Musings subboard, and I'll set one up, and I'll set you up as the moderator for that one. And if Jason said, yeah, I want one for the Nerds RPG Variety Cast, I would do that and set him up. And if Daniel wants one for the Bandits Keep, I will gladly and merrily do that. Everyone. And they don't even have to be an anchorite. As long as it's an RPG related board, I will do that. So right now I'm calling the boards PLAY, which stands for Podcasters and Listeners Alliance of Yore. Really, I wish I had a better word for the Yore, but I like the acronym PLAY because we play games, we play podcasts. It just seems to work. So if any of you listeners at all, please want to check this out, it is at www.decahedron.com/boards, like flat as a board, only plural boards. I will have a link in the show notes. I'm also going to be sending voicemails out to like probably Jason and maybe another podcast, if I can think of one. I don't like plugging my own stuff. I don't like asking people to plug my stuff. I don't know. Just anyway. But I'm going to anyway. But if other people want to spread the word, if you want to join, start up the conversations. Again, if you have any comments, thoughts for improvements on them, let me know. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And the boards are live now. When I have the BBS up and running, I will get an announcement here. I'll put it on the boards and anywhere else I can think of. Thanks for that call, Evil Jeff.
Jason here again. Not to discourage you from Traveler, But if you ever looked at Starships and Spacemen, either the original or the OSR version, based on BX, well, kind of sort of based on BX, that's put out by Goblinoid Games. Actually, Goblinoid Games owns the rights to that now, and they put out both versions. You can buy the original or the revamped. But they are the best system I've seen to do the original series of Star Trek. Or I guess you could do Next Generation with them too. But they're really designed for that original series of Star Trek. And I really like that system and would recommend you take a look at it if you haven't.
Hey, Jason, thank you for that recommendation of Starships and Spacemen. Actually, the only thing I know about that game I've learned by listening to your podcast, because a while back it was one of your System Sunday systems, I think, and I listened to that episode. As for Why Traveler, originally when I heard this message, I was going to say, yeah, but you don't get it. I love Traveler. I'm not looking for a new game. But the truth is, there's things on Traveler I don't like. I'm not really particularly keen on their, hand-to-hand / ranged combat, the people combat. What I like about the system is the Starship combat. And I like that, like, the damage isn't just generic hull points. It's things like your jump drive is damaged, or your maneuver drive is damaged, your power plant is damaged, you lost some fuel, your cargo bay got hit. And I think that's more, putting up air quotes here, realistic. It gives a more realistic feel, right? It's not, we're down 3 hit points. It's like, oh no, our jump drive is hit. Now we can only do a jump 2 instead of a jump 3, unless we get that fixed. Hey, engineer, go do some damage control. And I like that style of play. If I didn't want to play Traveler, no, I have physical copies. I mean, I'm not talking PDFs. I have original physical copies of, like, Universe by SPI and Space Opera by FGU and Space Master Privateers by ICE. Let's just keep all 3-letter acronyms. All classic space games that I could run. And really, if I were sitting down and we were starting a campaign fresh, like I said, this one I'm doing mainly to expose Keith and Heather to other classic systems. If I were going to start a campaign for my own use that's not intended to show people another system, it would probably be my system. I would do it in Lucky 7. If for whatever reason I didn't want to do that, I think I might lean towards Big Eyes Small Mouth for a space opera campaign. I like the way that their starship construction works. So thanks for that tip, but I am going to pass it by because I have a ton of other games. And like I said, this one is for a specific purpose. And so that's why I'm going with that one. And like I said, if I were to start fresh, it would be Big Eye Small Mouth or Lucky 7. But hey, thanks for the call, as always. Bye. So that's it for this week, folks. Thanks for Jason and Jeff for both giving the calls. Please do check out the web forums at decahedron.com/boards. Remember, decahedron is with a K. If you're the host of a podcast and you want your own subboard on there, drop me a line. I'll set that up for you. Don't forget that for the month of July, we're doing another giveaway. We are giving away a copy of my favorite hard sci-fi book of all time. And if you would like to be entered, just drop us a feedback and say what your favorite hard sci-fi property is. Again, I'm saying hard, so that's no Star Wars, no Star Trek. The new Battlestar Galactica, would that be hard sci-fi? I mean, they made a point not to use beam weapons. They did have a faster than light travel, but that was, I don't know. Maybe it would be. Anyway, let us know what yours is. Let us know how you would run it in a game, what system you use, what mods you might use, whatever. Let us know. Anything else you want to leave us feedback on, the email address is feedback@decahedron.com, or you can go to sayhi.chat/decahedron and leave up to a 60-second message, Or you can call our feedback line at 562-774-2278. That's 562-774-2278. Or simply 562-RPG-CAST. Anyway, you call that number, you get up to a 3-minute message. All those methods are in the show notes. They're in the outro music, or you can just go to decahedron.com. Oh, I suppose a new way to leave us feedback is to go to the message boards, right? decahedron.com/boards. And there's a Decahedron subboard on there already. And maybe I'll make a little topic in there called feedback. Anyway, thanks for listening. Until next week, happy gaming, happy life. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Decahedron RPG Cast. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message by calling 562-774-2278. That's 562-RPG-CAST. Or by visiting sayhi.chat/decahedron. You can also email us at feedback@decahedron.com. Links are in the show notes. For more information, visit decahedron.com. Remember that Decahedron is spelled with a K. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. Logos by Design Cat. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those dice rolling.